All right, so I figure let's kick this off. My name is Addison Tyne. I am the marketing specialist here at EAC. We will be sending the recording to everyone today, so pending any technical difficulties, you will receive a replay of our webinar. Following our session today, a short survey will also appear. We ask that you stick around and answer these questions for us after the webinar. It will help us improve content, get your feet on it, and also know how we can improve for you going forward. As we wait for everyone to join this morning, I just want to go ahead and I'll start with a short introduction of EAC, what we're all about, before I'll hand it off to our technical account manager, Bill Schlund. So at EAC, our mission is to transform the way companies design, manufacture, connect to, and service their products. We are located all over the US, and our headquarters are currently established in Minneapolis, Minnesota. For more than just another value-added reseller from PTC, for over 20 years, we've actually helped companies innovate their products and development processes. With experts in over 22 areas of product development, we help organizations create better products, rethink what they may seem impossible, and ultimately achieve results that make a lasting impression on the world as we know it today. Beyond helping organizations connect to information they need, we also work with companies to connect their enterprises, as well as focus on specific focal points which produce bits and pieces of their operational value. We also assist with design and engineering products, host educational webinars, and PTC certified training courses. All in all, we want you to know that PTC and EAC are companies that work together to get technology at the forefront of your business to help make your teams successful. Our niche is helping you figure out where to start, and our specialty is helping you build on what you already have. With that, it looks like a few more people have joined us, so I'm going to go ahead and pass things over to Bill so you can learn about everything that is new in Windchill 12.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I am Bill Schlund, and I'll be going through Windchill 12 new enhancement capabilities. So I'm going to start off just kind of a general agenda. What we're going to talk about is some performance improvements, and I'm going to couch that a little bit and say perceived performance improvements. Also some general PDM, PLM improvements, data management, workgroup managers, doc management, change management, and then finally we'll hit a little bit on reporting. So I tried to capture the majority of what most people use in Windchill. Obviously, there are some other capabilities that are more out on the outliers, I could say, but this is the main capabilities that that the majority of our customers deal with. So with that, first of all, the compatibility of Windchill 12. You could be back on Creo 4 as long as it's M130 or higher, and then also with Creo 7, Creo 7.01. Just because of the whole timing issue of getting software out, the very first version of Creo 7.700 wasn't really supported by Windchill 12. But I said again, that was just a timing issue. So let's go on a little bit here about Windchill support, just as a general overview, and we can see that 12 is currently out now. That'll be supported through March 2021. Then there'll be 12.01, and that'll go out through September. And it looks like 12.02 is the one that PTC is going to put a lot of the support time into, and that will go out to June of 2024 with extended dates out to 2025. Again, an extended support date is you pay extra for maintenance and you get patches and things like that. So as we can see, also 11.2, we can kind of see the timelines for the other previous versions of Windchill there. So if you are watching this on a recording, you can stop this and review those as you need. Move on a little bit, we'll talk about our performance improvements. This is kind of interesting, kind of lift up the hood a little bit of how Windchill works. But what a lot of customers have been talking to PTC about is that it was taking a long time or a longer time to save things to Workspace and things like that. And it was dependent on how many entities and items were in the workspace. So as we can see from the graph that I have over here, as the workspace size increases, so does the time to save things to the workspace. So if you have a really large workspace, it takes longer to save things to that workspace. So the question is why? I make a block with a hole in it, and I save it to the workspace, just saves it to the workspace. But if I have 5,000 or 10,000 items in the workspace, and I save that block in the hole with a hole in it to the workspace, and it doesn't have anything to do with any of those other 10,000 items, Windchill will still does a comparison between what is in the workspace and then what is in Windchill, and it does kind of a merging of the ideas, right? Has anything changed in the works on the Windchill end, and then what in the workspace has changed? So it has to look through all those items. So that's why it takes longer. If I have 10,000 items, it's comparing with Windchill those 10,000 items, even though only one, my block with a hole in it, has changed. And if I have 50 items, then you notice it's much quicker. So that's one of the things that EAC was wrestling with and PTC was wrestling with, is how can we make this more quick for the user. So if we take a look at what was done, is what happens is typically when we would save something, let's say we're in Creo and we save it to the workspace, and you'd see down on the bottom of the screen the little swimming sharks, you know, a little blue circle going around saying that it's working. And then when it was finished, we could get back to working in Creo again. What they've done now is as soon as it saves to the workspace, it frees up Creo. Now in the workspace, it's still doing that negotiating with regular Windchill, with the regular vault, right? Comparisons and all that type of stuff. So the time it takes to do that is still the same. But what it's doing is it's freeing up your time in Creo. As soon as it saves it to the workspace, Creo's freed up, and now you can continue working, right? So it's not locked up for that whole period of time. So that's a good deal. Again, if we have large workspaces, that will save us some time, and not a whole lot of time. If we kind of take a look at it here, I kind of got a nice graph explaining kind of the break-even point of where this goes. So as we can see, without the new capabilities that are in Windchill 12, we can see that things are pretty much of a linear amount of time to complete a save or a check-in or upload or any of that. But we can see with Windchill 12, it knocks it down quite dramatically. And from the time savings, you notice if we have 5,000 items, it might save us like 7 seconds. But if you have 20,000 items, you know, it saves you half a minute. And if you file frequently and do things like that, that can add up. But again, not huge, but it is actually fairly dramatic for what it does. So this kind of begs a few questions, right? So now that I have Creo freed up and it's still cranking in the background, can a user close the model with that background process still running? And yes, you can. Can a user close the CAD package that you're using when the background is still going? And the answer is yes and no. It depends what CAD you're using. Because the Workgroup Manager is built in to Creo, you cannot exit Creo when that background process is still going. Even though Creo has been freed up, it's still connected to that negotiation that the Workgroup Manager is doing with Windchill. If you try to exit, a window will pop up and say, there's a background process running, you can't exit at this time. If you're working with let's say a third-party package or something like that, where the Workgroup Manager is separate, like SolidWorks or like what old schematics used to be, has a separate Workgroup Manager, then you can close that application because it's not tied to the Workgroup Manager. It's a separate window. It keeps running, right? And you can exit out the application. So if it has a built-in Workgroup Manager, you can't exit out right away. But if you don't, then you can exit the application. So then, how do you know when the background operation is complete? So you'll see a couple of different things. Either, you know, the CAD UI might be blocked, you know, like it was in the past. The progress indicators the little swimming sharks might be going, or what we can tell as Creo people is the workspace page will be available or it will be refreshed. And that's when we know that that process is finished. So when do you see the changes reflected in your workspace? When the full operation is complete. So the workspace is kind of locked while it's still negotiating with Windchill. And then when it's finished, it refreshes and then you see everything updated. And so the question is, does this really improve the overall performance during this operation? It really doesn't. What it does is it frees up that application that's working with the Workgroup Manager to do other things. So if I were to save something, saves it right away, I can get back into Creo, start doing some more work. The background process is still running. If I tried to save it again or do something else that required me to go to the workspace, it wouldn't let me do it. It would say there's a current process running and you have to wait until it's done. So that's just a little overview of kind of the, as I mentioned before, perceived performance that is done. And again, for large workspaces, and if you're doing things frequently, that can save you some time during the day. So let's move on. This is also true for if we're doing other related activities where we're doing a check-in or an upload. Again, that same process, whether you're doing a check-in or upload, it still saves to the workspace, then we get freed up, and then it's still doing the typical negotiation and comparisons with Windchill. So the process's time, overall time doesn't change, but we will free up the Creo portion of it. So let's look at some general PDM/PLM improvements. So the first thing I wanted to highlight is a little bit about augmented reality. There's quick links, so you can create an experience and see those. We can send that from Windchill, and it will send it to the portal up into the cloud to have that information optimized and then made available for other people to share in that experience. The quick links, if Windchill was not connected to the internet, those links weren't active. You weren't able to use those. It relied on the ability of Windchill to get onto the internet. What it does now in Windchill 12 is that it uses the browser, the client's browser, to access the internet. So it's no longer dependent on Windchill to be on the internet in order to push things into the cloud. It uses your client web browser to do that. Also, you can launch a design share or launch the design share portal from inside Windchill. There's a hyperlink to do that, so you can share your experiences with other people. And one of the things when we're pushing things into the cloud to have them optimized, if we're doing that from Windchill, because it's in the cloud, there's a limitation on the file size that you can send to the cloud in order to have it be optimized. And that limit is 150 megabytes. So before, it wouldn't tell you. You could send it a 160 megabyte file and it would crank on it for a while and come back and say, nah, I can't do it. What it does now in Windchill 12 is it tells you right away, this file is too big, I won't be able to optimize it in the cloud. Now this isn't true if we're creating our AR experiences, let's say from Creo, because it's using the horsepower of your laptop and of Creo to generate and optimize those experiences. It isn't using the cloud, so you do not have this type of limitation. So this limitation only raises its head if it's being done on the Windchill end and not on the Creo end, just information-wise. Let's talk a little bit about revise and change tasks. So it's always been, can be, two separate operations, right? I could select on a part or a drawing and say, I want to revise it. Or I could select on the same item and say, I want to put them as part of a change task. And some people want this to be a little bit more formalized. So if we're going to revise something, I want it to be included in a change task. And I don't want you to revise it outside of a change task. So what we can do now is we can go in and change that and actually remove the ability to revise things unless you're in a change task. So what it's doing is it's more formalizing the process of revision and including it in along a change request. So that is one of the capabilities that was added in Windchill 12 to actually remove that capability to revise things outside of a change request and make it a more formalized process. So it actually hides the icon. So another thing, if we talk about, let's talk about WT parts and the CAD documents that might be within those WT parts. Typically, we could, and again, talking about revisions, we could revise the part and not revise, or revise, I should say, the CAD document, but not the WT part. And so the WT part still would point to the old, the previous revision, right? Because it didn't know that the other part was revised. So they've done some things in Windchill to help alleviate that issue of things getting out of alignment, basically revising out of different at different times. So typically, here's an example where we have a part, and this might be a release part, but now we need to make a change. And me as a CAD guy, I know, well, I'm going to just call up the part and start revising it. So I do that, and I'm not worried. I should be, but I'm not about the WT part or anything else. I just know that I need to change this widget. So I revise it, and now it's version B. Then there's the official change that comes down saying, okay, now we have to revise the part and the drawing. So those both come in as, you know, the part is version B, the drawing has been revised up to B, but since the widget was already done ahead of time and the WT part doesn't know about it, it points back to A. And so that could lead to some issues, right, of pointing to the wrong thing. So how do we go about fixing something like that? What we do is we don't disassociate that link to the old one. We simply just move it to the new version. So just this little example here, we can kind of see that it's just taking that link and just reattaching it to the newer version of, or the more recent version of that particular part. And so now it's back in sync again. So the disassociation doesn't take place. It's really just moving the link. So why is this good? Let's say we're doing some bill of material management, BOM management. And when we go to our WT part and we say, show us visually that bill of material, if it's pointing to the older version, the older revision, we would get an inaccurate representation, right? Or if we're making a manufacturing BOM or something like that. So by moving that link and not disassociating it, it will update automatically and give you the correct representation of the part that has been changed. So there's two things that happen with this. Let me just backtrack for a second. First of all, when we update this this part, we can either have it auto-associate and it will automatically update, or if they are manually updating, you have to manually revise it, there's an icon to do that as well. So if parts are automatically associated, so the CAD part is automatically or auto-associated to the WT part, this can automatically take place, this moving of the link. Or it can also be done manually if it was manually associated to a WT part. So another thing that we can talk about is kind of the collector. When we go and we want to do something, we want to revise something, we want to rename it, we want to do something, we want to collect other parts that would be affected. So that's where we have the collector over here. And so the collector says, here's a list of all the things that you could associate with this particular type of change that you're making, this revision. So there could be lots and lots of things. You know, here we have, you know, parts and drawings, family tables, but there could be notes and other things that could be associated as well. And this can be sometimes confusing to newer users or infrequent users. So one of the things that we can do in Windchill 12 is we can customize this list of things that a user would typically want to include in this collection for changing something. So we could just present them in this case with just 3 things. You know, typically we just would collect the parts and the drawings and maybe the family tables and have that as part of our save as process. So we can turn off the other options that are potential items that could be included with that. Now this is overridable by the user. So this is something the admin could set up, and those things would be turned off, and the user could say, I want to turn them on because I'm familiar with this and I do need to, update some notes too, or something like that. So that is overridable by the user, but it can be set up so that we can remove the options in the collector to make it less cluttered, right, and a little bit more straightforward. Now, there's another thing here that we can talk about is we can kind of customize the collector as well. So PTC has added a couple of icons that we can see here for customizing how it grabs information. So we could grab a child and it grabs the parent, or we can grab the parent and it grabs the children, things like that. So that's what these icons do. They're predefined in Windchill 12. You can take them out and test them and see if they're defined to your liking. You can make modifications to them, but we can then include these into the interface, so it makes it a little bit easier, again, to grab information that is going to be affected by, a save as or a change, where we can say, grab this part and all the children, or I've grabbed the children, grab all the parents. So that type of thing is included, needs to be turned on in order to use this. And like I said, it's kind of in a test environment. So you can see over here on the side, there's some test collection definitions created by PTC. So you could test those out, see if they fit to what you typically do. And if they do, add them in. If not, you can customize them and then add them in, or not. Just keep the Windchill interface the way that it is. But these are some things that can be added in order to allow you to kind of customize and make it a little bit easier to start collecting things when a change is happening. So let's talk a little bit about data management. First thing is that Pro INTRALINK is not going to be shipped anymore with Windchill 12. So INTRALINK sunset date is pretty much the Windchill 11 versions. So this isn't new to anybody who does have INTRALINK. They've been sent information. Hopefully they've been called by EAC and PTC letting you know that this is true. There was a letter sent out in March of this year also indicating that. But if you are on INTRALINK and you wanted to move or go to Windchill 12, you can't go from INTRALINK to 12. What you would have to do is move from INTRALINK to Windchill. If you're on INTRALINK 11, go to Windchill 11, or INTRALINK 11.1, go to Windchill 11.1, and then go up to 12. So that would be the path forward if you are a Pro INTRALINK user. You need to move over to the Windchill world, and then you can proceed following the path as Windchill progresses into the future. So just kind of an informational thing for the INTRALINK guys that are out there. So here's a little bit of compatibility, a roadmap, a little bit of an eye chart, but really what we're talking about is compatibility with Creo here. So we have the different versions of Creo along the vertical, and then across the top we have the different versions of Windchill. So right now we're talking about our current release of Creo, which is 7, and that works with Windchill 11.1 and 11.2, and also with Windchill 12. One of the things that the older versions, so Creo 7 has some new capabilities in it, some new features that really won't be exposed in Windchill 11.1 and 11.2, but it will in Windchill 12. And so that feature might be flexible, or let's say multi-body components, right? What it will do in 12, it will allow you to see those multiple bodies. It won't make separate parts for them, but they are separate items that you will see. In previous versions, like in 11.2 or 11.1, when we check in a part that has multiple bodies, it just says you have that part. It doesn't see the multiple bodies that are in that part. They aren't exposed. But in 12 it is. That's just kind of a nuance as going forward, as Creo changes and new things change in Creo. 12 is going to pick up on that. Even though the older versions can work with 7, they don't pick up on that new nuance. So as I mentioned before, with the multi-body This is the multi-body capability. Inside a PRT, just for those of you that might not know, inside a part file, I can actually have multiple files, multiple bodies, and I can extract them out in the future to be separate parts, but they are represented as individual bodies there. They can have different mass properties, they can have different colors, different characteristics, different names, all of that type of stuff. So it's, in a way, it's like an assembly without being an assembly. Now, Windchill will see those separate bodies. Windchill 12 will. Windchill 11 will just see the main PRT file, right, and not see the separate bodies, see them as being separate bodies inside. So that's something a little bit about really kind of a core change in Creo as far as being able to multi-body modeling. We could kind of do that before with surfaces and quilts and things like that, but it was crude and lots of features. Now we're being able to be a multi-body modeler. But again, Windchill has to deal with it, and it does. Another thing which is new, and this is new with Creo 7.02, which is also out, came out recently, is that that works with ANSYS. So ANSYS AIM is built in to Creo now. It's just a menu pick, as you can see right here, and it uses an ANSYS solvers and ANSYS capabilities inside of your Creo environment. So ANSYS is different than Mechanica or Simulate, right, from the old days. It has different files, it has projects, has different reports, all of those things. Again, Windchill can deal with those things as well. Initial native support would be Windchill 12.01, right? So that's coming out, I think, in December, I think next month. But that will be able to deal with the new file types and relationships that ANSYS brings to the PTC family. So talk a little bit about Workgroup Managers. What we see here is a list of things that are being dropped. And it's the same with Creo, right? As we have newer versions of NX and of SolidWorks, we drop support for the older versions, right? So we go back like 2 years, just like we do with Creo. So same. So these are going to be the things in Windchill 12, the Workgroup Managers. These will be the versions of third-party CAD systems that are not going to be supported anymore. And that's just because we support the newer versions as it goes forward. There's still considerations for doing Workgroup Managers for the CAD's 5 guys, Creo schematics, and the CATIA 3D experience. That will probably come to fruition, or at least a decision on that in the very near future. But at the time of this discussion, it's still being negotiated and worked on. So here we can see the different things that are supported, the different Workgroup Managers and the versions that they support. Here is a link to that. If you're on watching this recording, you can use this link, copy it down. I also have that link displayed here. It's a heck of an eye chart. Again, watching a recording, you might be able to zoom up on it, or because it is a recording, maybe it'll be too grainy to read this. Remember that we did have this link down here to get to that specific information should you need to look at it further. If we move on a little bit, talk about some additional changes. So the embedded Chrome browser that's in the Workgroup Manager now uses version 76. And when we used to launch the Workgroup Manager, it used to run through a JavaScript first, and then it would start it up. That is now gone, and it goes directly to the exe file to start up the Workgroup Manager. And also, the Workgroup Manager compiler is now using the Visual Studio 2019 update 4. So things are, the background softwares that are being leveraged inside of the PTC world are also being upgraded, and we're taking advantage of those in Windchill 12. So one of the things also with, it's kind of like what I was talking about before, when we could free up Creo and the Workgroup Manager was still processing. One of the things that it would do is if we save something to the workspace, and then we say, okay, now we want to upload it to Windchill. If that, let's say that part that we were sending into Windchill, that part already existed, that name. So it'd come back and say, this part exists, but the workspace wouldn't update, wouldn't refresh automatically. So it would still look like it kind of worked, we wouldn't see the icon that this is still a new part. So what we've done, or what's been done in Windchill 12, is it refreshes right away if there is some type of error or something like that. The workspace is refreshed, so we have an accurate representation of what's there. So this part wasn't able to be uploaded to Windchill, so we still see the little plus sign that it's new to the workspace. And so just kind of a small thing, but a clarity for the user to know that if there was something that kind of went sideways, sending it to Windchill that will be updated and notified right away by the icons in our workspace. A little bit about doc management. And this is something that I saw. I didn't see a particular PowerPoint presentation on this at all, but I thought it was important, is that typically when we do a save as, you do a save as, collect all the parts as we talked about before and do the save as, and then we would have to go in and then change the attributes of the parts. Things that might have changed, maybe it's a different material or something. Now that can all be done in one step. So as we're doing the save as, we can also affect changes to the attributes of those parts at the same time. So it's not a two-step process. I thought that was kind of an important thing to be aware of. Also with document management, Windchill now works with Office 365. So Office 365 is in the cloud. You can still have a regular Office on your desktop and Office 365, and Windchill can work with both of those on the same machine. That's not a big deal. The way that you work with 365 though is a little bit different. We're used to going and downloading the Office integration package, and now there's a separate one for Office 365 because it is in the cloud. It's different, right? So there's a different thing that we need to do, and actually the administrator or someone with administrator rights kind of needs to work with this to get this one up and running. But there are there's a different download to interface with Office 365, and right now with 365 currently, as the release that I'm talking about, Windchill today, it supports Word and Excel, and it will be supporting Outlook and PowerPoint in the upcoming releases. But currently just Word and Excel in 365 is supported. So if you're in Windchill and you pick, I want to edit this doc, it can pop up Office 365 as to allow you to edit that. Talking a little bit about change management. Before, when we go and look at the changes tab, there used to be 4 different tables there. Again, this is sort of like when the description I gave before of kind of minimizing things to make it a little bit simpler when we're doing revisions. We can just give a default list of things that we typically would revise. Well, what they've done with the changes, there'll be 4 different tables breaking things out. They put it all under one table. And then we can control the table and group things together to do that. But at least now there's just one table, again, with the different types of changes that are there. And this word changes is probably this word, physical word of changes, will probably change in the very near future, because now we can include things like design reviews, and that design review isn't really a change per se. So we might see this, at least it's nomenclature change, but this one table view all kind of thing won't change. That is new with 12 and should stay. So all these different types of things that can change in Windchill, as we see this list here, those will all be included here. And like I said, we can control the table as which order they're in and how they're grouped together and all those types of things. But a single table that we see there. So we're just kind of highlighting this one. In this particular case, is design review. So some other things, not initially with 12, but with the design review capabilities, we're going to be able to do some things as it's part of a change process potentially, but we can control how things happen and kind of, it doesn't have to happen right away. Like usually when you do a change, it happens right away. It's out in Windchill and it's progressing through the workflow. But here we can say, what things are going to be affected and what things aren't. And we've changed the things that are in a design review to be called review objects, as opposed to what it used to be called were affected objects. Again, a nomenclature, but a little more of a clarity change, so that if we do have things designated as a design review, we will see those objects as review objects. So this is another something that I've had people ask, call me, how do I do this? It's now part of 12, but if the user is missing, he's on vacation, he's sick, has something checked out in his workspace and we need to get at it, how do I do that as an administrator without going onto his workstation, logging in as him? So now you can remotely go in and undo checkouts and do renames and different types of work that you would need to do, but as an administrator, so you have access to the user's workspace to do those types of things that if he was there, you'd be asking him to do them. But since they're not, you can do them yourself. So I thought that was pretty important. I'll talk a little bit about reporting. That's changing. So PTC and Windchill have used Cognos in the past and still will through the 12.0x stream. So that will be 3 releases, 12.0.0, 12.0.1, 12.0.2, and then Windchill will go to 12.1. At that point, the plans are no longer to support Cognos. So there's 3 releases. If you have any kind of custom Cognos reports that you're doing to kind of migrate those to JasperReports. So reporting is going to be part of Windchill going forward. There already are some out-of-the-box built-in, reports that are done for changes, for quality, for BOM reports coming out in 12.01. But that's going forward. They will be using Jasper. The nice thing about it is it doesn't take a separate server, and it isn't really a separate install or anything like that. It's built in now to Windchill, whereas Cognos is always kind of separate. So other applications that use reports like npmlink and projects and WATM and task lists, they will be taking advantage of the Jasper reports, the highly formatted reports that Jasper does. Just a little slide here, talking about if we are using Cognos, kind of what is the path or what should we do? Right now, if you don't use Cognos, don't start up using it, right? It's going to be sunsetted. So start working with JasperReports right away. If you're just using Cognos out of the box without customizing anything, just start moving over to Jasper reporting. If you do have some customized reports that you've done in Cognos, there are some utilities that PTC has to kind of help clean those up and get them ready to be migrated over. And again, it'll be over the 12.0x stream. So as soon as Windchill hits 12.1, the plans are that Cognos reports will no longer be supported. So a couple of things about Creo View, since that is part of Windchill as well, is that Creo View can now see combination states. So that's a Creo capability where we can mix and match different view states. I want some parts to be hidden lines, some parts to be shaded. I want it to be exploded. I want a simplified rep. You can mix and match all those together. That's why it's called a combination state. Well, now those combination states can be viewed inside of Creo View. So those can be used in comparing different states in let's say a change request or something like that. It's much more visible. Before in a change request, there's usually just a hyperlink there, right? That you click on it and then it starts up Creo View and you can see something. Now it's going to be much more visible. Those different changes, they'll be able to access those a lot easier now that they're going to make that more exposed and not just a pure hyperlink to do that, to see results of different combination states compared to before and after maybe a change request or something like that. And then finally in ThingWorks, there's a My Tasks app. So that's usually what we see on our homepage, our to-do list, our tasks that we have lined up. Now that's an app in Navigate that we can work with, and we can kind of see how it's laid out here, the different areas. Also the View app will have, can save default searches for things like that. It can view attached documents as well, and it can export things directly to Excel or to a part structure if we wanted to do that. And then of course it also does the regular Creo viewing type capabilities that we've always had. Also, one thing with Navigate 9.0 is that if you have newer versions, or when you have a new version of Navigate, it will install over the old version. Before, you used to have to uninstall the old version, then load the new version. Now it can install in place, sort of like you can with Creo, right? We can update Creo from version 6 to 7, kind of replace it that way if we wanted to, or keep them both. But usually in Navigate, it was like a two-step process. Remove the old one, install the new one. So that's really what I have for our presentation covering Windchill. I tried to cover a lot of the basic capabilities that would affect most users. Certainly, if there are any questions, you can forward those on to EAC. We'll get back and certainly answer questions. But at this point, I will draw a close to our presentation of Windchill 12. I hope you found this useful, and thank you for attending.
All right, thank you so much, Bill, for that. We hope you found today's presentation useful. We did get all your questions, so we will reach back to you if you chatted them in. Thank you so much for doing so. To wrap things up this morning, just another reminder, there will be a short survey that will appear once this presentation ends. We ask if you have a couple minutes to spare, and we would really appreciate if you could just stick around and answer those questions for us. If you did like what you saw this morning, or if you're curious about what it takes to get started, and in the case you have any additional questions about Windchill 12, we'd absolutely love to continue the conversation with you as well. So feel free to submit those, reach out to us. Our contact information is in front of you. As one of the very first Windchill service partners in the US with over 2 decades of experience, our PLM consultants are more than happy to answer any questions you might have, or at least get you pointed in the right direction. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. We appreciate your time, and we hope you have a great